Welcome back everyone to the SimZone. We've got things working just in time. And, well, just 1 minute left in this qualifying session to go. Demori currently on provisional pole, 145.5. And as you can see, the track is now currently green. It was raining to begin with in this qualifying session, so the rain has settled. And there is a proper dry line on the track. Well, pretty much most of the track is bone dry here. But yes, Demori currently on provisional pole. Not anymore. Looks like Pisano goes provisional pole, but Demori 4 tenths up. I don't think it's going to be enough. No, it's not. Who else is up on the time? Vining as he exits the final corner. 8 tenths up here for Vining, and the lap time is going to get quicker and quicker. So the track has just gone too fast. So whoever can stay out for the longest will benefit the most. Thomas, P6 at the moment. Looks like that was Giuseppe there. I think he's binned it into the wall. There's Giuseppe, I don't think he was on a lap anyways, but Thomas approaching the final corner. It's 1 second up, but he's going to be able to put one more lap in. And well, he's left it quite late, which is possibly going to benefit him the most. You can see Tobin in the background, but Thomas there into P3. Tobin in the background is where is he? P7 at the moment. He started another lap, and I think that will be it. No, the 63 car is Pryor, but no, I think he pulls over there, so that's his qualifying session over. Now whoever we have left is going to be up for a really good improvement. Besselink coming around up to the final corner. Who's that in front of him? Is it Van Hoorn? Yes, it is. So Van Hoorn's going to cross the line with a 1 second improvement. Up to P8 he goes. Besselink up to P9. Who else have we got? Demori into the pits. Wasn't able to find any more time. Vining is 4 tenths up here on this lap. Orange is 8 tenths up here. Whereas Vining coming up towards the penultimate corner now. Who's got in front of him? I believe Thomas is just behind them. 4 tenths up. Looks like Raggy in P3. That's his qualifying session over. Thomas, oh no, Thomas is a bit further back. Vining approaching the final corner now, half a second up. This is going to put him on the front row. P2 there goes Vining. Thomas 6 tenths up at the moment. This is possibly going to put him on the front row in P2. In fact, he's 8 tenths up. This could possibly be for Thomas if he can find a couple more tenths. These final corners, getting the rear out there. Maybe has lost him some time, I'm not sure. He's still 9 tenths up as he rounds the final corner here. 9 tenths up, but I don't think it's going to be pole here as Thomas crosses the line, and it's P2 there, just 1/100th off. But that's it for this qualifying session. We'll be back in just a moment, so be sure to stay tuned and stick with us. So, ladies and gents, before we get on to the formation lap, we will bring up the standings. So coming into this round, the penultimate round of the championship, we've got one more round after this, which will be next week. Michael Thomas is leading the championship on 508 points. Pisano in second in the championship on 487. A good buffer there for Thomas at the moment coming into the penultimate round. Demori in third on 481, only 6 points behind Pisano in P2. Pitchuk in P4 isn't able to make it today, unfortunately, on 453. Vining on 444 in P5. Galet in P6 on 399. Orange in P7 on 381. Hackham in P8, who isn't able to make it today, unfortunately, on 369. Tobin in P9 on 348. And to round off the top 10, we've got Faulkner on 336 points. Now let's get a quick grid walk here for the drivers that we have attending today as well. Let's have a look. As we saw, Pisano starting on pole, Thomas in P2, and of course, as you can see, track has now gone damp and the weather has actually changed, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Vining P3, Demori in P4, Raggy in P5, Owen in P6, Orange in P7, Breyer in P8, you can see Van Hoorn there, P9, Esselink just behind him in P10 in that funky new livery. Barth in P11. Curtin in P12. Elshaug in P13. And to round off the field, DeHuisRocker in P14. Now, while the drivers were lining up on the grid, it was predicted that the rain would stop. But as they've started to go on the formation lap, they've got some more cloud coverage, some passing by clouds maybe, and there's been some more rainfall on the circuit. And it's gone from, I believe it was greasy, to a wet track. And we are, well, just in the formation lap. And while the drivers are sat on the grid, no cars going around the track. So all the water is able to settle down. And for those that have started on slicks, they're going to be in big, big trouble here for the start of this race. Now remember, the drivers don't have to. They pit just in the pit window. They can pit before if they do start on the wrong tyres, but they have to do one lap. They cannot pit on the first lap because the pits are closed. But here we go, we've got everyone lining up in double file now. Yeah, Lisa and greasy to wet, yeah. But it could easily change. This is what changeable weather is about. This can easily happen in real life as well. That's why we like changeable conditions. You never know what's going to happen with the weather. Here we go. Looks like all the drivers will be staying out. No one stopping at the pit entry line. Now a wet Watkins Glen, we don't see this often, but Pisano on the inside's got a good start there, pulls over towards the outside of the circuit. Thomas behind, now looking for a move down the inside into turn 1, and in fact goes for it. Pisano's left the door wide open, but Thomas mounting the inside curve, and we've had a spin there. I believe that was Vining and Demori making contact or dropping right down the order. In fact, we've got is that Van Hoorn wide as well? I think it was. Van Hoorn, I think, may have got involved in that, or just avoided that actually, but Demori's dropped right down the order, down to P14, and he's got some serious damage on that Ferrari of his now. Not the best start there from Demori or Vining, in fact, both dropping right down the order. And Besselink is up into P4 after that. Tobin is up into P3, but looks like Besselink is going to be overtaken here by Orange. Orange on the inside with this long right-hander. And I don't think Besselink's going to be able to hold it round the outside through there. Oh, bit of a twitch there from the Porsche of Orange, and Besselink's going to have a look down the inside, but backs out of it. And in fact, as playful as that livery looks, it looks quite menacing as well. You don't want that behind you, especially with those red aux lights in the headlights there. But Raggy behind in P6, Pryor in P7, one-armed Pryor. I don't know if he's recovered by now, actually. He's doing quite well. We know the Aston Martin is good in these wet conditions. You can see Barth here having to fend off Curtin early doors. But Curtin not going for any risks, and Vining now P10. Hasn't dropped too far back, but it looks like Barth and Curtin going side by side here up towards the left-hander. Now remember, this is uphill braking, so drivers won't need to slow down the car too much because gravity does most of the work. But Barth holds on there into P8, and the race leader Pisano pulling away. Whoa, that's a massive lead there to Thomas already, and Thomas just not able to stick with him. I can't tell if he's on wets or dries. I can definitely see Pisano's on wets, and I have a feeling that Thomas is on slicks here in this race, so he's taken a gamble, and I'm not sure if it's paid off. You can see Tobin in the background, only 2.3 seconds behind, and I think he might be on slicks as well. It's a brave choice for some of these drivers if they're on slicks at this point of the race. It looks like Raggy P5 has just got past Orange, but Besselink is now filling a gap to this battle behind him. And I think Orange has made a mistake somewhere because he was in front of Besselink, but that puts Besselink back up into P4, and that's side by side Pryor and Curtin, the two Aston Martins. Curtin trying it around the outside there, Pryor hooking the inside curb to get his car turned around, and he's held on here. But they've got the Mercedes once again of Vining hunting them down, and Demori and Barth both into the pits, so starting on the wrong tyres. Both of these drivers starting on the wrong tyres, and that's Barth back out on track now with the correct tyres on, but he's lost lots of time here, and the gamble for the drivers who took slicks hasn't paid off. But you can see the rain has stopped. So it was just a passing by cloud, and there's already a bit of a dry line forming here. You can already see it now, but there is rainfall once again expected in a few minutes, so some more heavy clouds approaching Watkins Glen. Let's go back to this battle. What's going on down here? Looks like Vining trying it around the outside of Pryor. Oh, he's got the rear out on the exit, and Pryor keeping towards the middle of the track. Can Vining get it done around the outside? Looks like he might be able to, and he has done. So, pardon me. Vining getting that move done around the outside. Pryor dropping down to P9. We quickly switch back to Orange, Raggy and Besselink now, and in the background that looks like Pryor is going for another move on Vining. But have we already had a retirement? I think we have. Demori's already retired from the race. Oh god, he's not had a great run here in this race. But I think that's his championship hopes out the window there with the retirement, unfortunately. But that's why it's always so important to go towards the end of the race, pick up as many points as you can, because you never know what can happen. Right, let's take a quick replay of what we saw at the start of the race. So let's have a look if we can grab a replay up in just a moment. Orange still on the back of Raggy and Besselink. Besselink doing well here at Watkins Glen. He seems to like the he seems to be enjoying the wet weather so far. He's sticking with these two for now. But it all looks like it went horribly wrong for Demori and Vining into turn 1, which we'll have a look at now. So they're about to go green here on the replay, and you can see here, off to a good start. Now these two, both RKM drivers, looks like Demori maybe turns in a bit too early there, tags the back, and Manuel Raggi there with not really anywhere to go, colliding into them, and Demori, oh, it was absolute chaos there into turn 1, just caused by 2 or 3 drivers. But we'll go back to this. Orange has got a great run now, coming down the straight up towards the bus stop chicane. Is he going to look for a move here? Very risky to go side by side into the bus stop, but no, he backs out of that one sensibly and just slots back in onto the racing line. And Pisano already with a 12-second lead. I believe P2 and P3, Thomas and Tobin, are both on slick tyres if I'm not mistaken. They are currently lapping 154s, whereas the race leader Pisano in the 150s. So I think that Pisano, well, lapping 4 seconds a lap quicker, he's definitely chosen the right tyre for this race. He's not gone for the gamble of running slicks, and you can see in the background Vining looking for a move on Curtin. Now, he had a look down the inside well before the braking zone, but that's not going to phase the Assetto Racing Team driver there, Curtin, in P7. You're going to go for a dummy, you have to do it just before the braking zone, so it distracts the driver as they're trying to slow down the car. But these two are catching up to the strain ahead. We've got Orange once again behind Draghi and Besselink in P4. Besselink doing a better job than I expected, actually. He hasn't had that much experience on the PC side of ACC. He's obviously moved over from console, but going offline there, maybe trying to break the slipstream from the cars behind, but moving back over to the racing line now and into turn 1. Turn 1, such a difficult corner. It's so difficult to judge when to get on the power and how much you need to slow down the car to get the nose turned in. It's a really awkward corner is turn 1, and obviously you're downhill braking as well, so you're going to need to brake earlier than you usually would, as gravity is working pretty much against you, I'd say. It's so easy to run wide into turn 1 or brake a tad bit too late, but back we go to Raggi. Now Raggi and Orange continuing to battle, is allowing Besselink to pull a slight gap to the 2, but it looks like that is Curtin catching up, and Vining's made a mistake somewhere. Elshaug now into the pits for a mandatory pit stop. Looks like he may have started on the wrong tyres as well. Into the pits he goes. He doesn't seem to have any damage on the car, so yeah, I think it is just wrong tyres there for him. And here we go. That is Van Hoorn now pretty much caught up to this battle. Vining just a second off as well. This is heating up to be a good mid-pack battle here. From all the way from P4 down to P8, and even Stuart Pryor down in P9 not far off. And to be fair, Van Hoorn in P10 after that incident he had in turn 1, and his car actually seems to be okay. I believe it was Van Hoorn and not Curtin. The cars seem to be okay. Both Assetto Racing Team drivers actually seem to be in pretty good condition in terms of their car. But Pryor with a horrible exit out the final corner is going to allow Van Hoorn to close right up here, coming down into towards turn 1, and Raggi now glued to the rear bumper of that Porsche. You can see Besselink trying to go for a slightly defensive line, but that's not going to work. That's going to give him a horrible run down this long back straight, where he needs as much speed as possible because the drivers behind have got a slipstream. But Orange once again looking for a move into the bus stop isn't going to phase Raggi one bit. He's going to continue paying attention of the track in front of him, and you really need to have some serious concentration on this track, especially in the wet, to go through that bus stop chicane, because one slight error, as we just see Orange get a bit of snap oversteer on the exit, one slight error and taking those curves wrong through the bus stop chicane can send you spitting off into the wall. But with that mistake, looks like Besselink is going to be done round the outside here. Oh, looks like there's not much room left on the inside there for Besselink, and Raggy trying it around the outside, but Besselink holds on there to P4, and he's now going to have to go defensive. Raggy looking left and right, but pulls towards the outside of the track. Orange was about to get overtaken by Van Hoorn as well, but didn't, and looks like he's late on the brakes as Orange tried to maybe capitalize on these two battling up ahead, but couldn't go for the move. And now this is a huge 5-car battle. It's Van Hoorn and Pryor. Van Hoorn's actually lost some time now. He's made a bit of an error some ways, over 6 seconds back to this pack. He's behind Pryor now, so he's made a bit of a mistake here this lap. And looks like that is Elshaug with a drive-through penalty. I believe that would be for track limits. That's a bit of a shame for Elshaug. And it looks like contacts there between Besselink and Raggy. They've run so wide. Interesting racing line, boys. And looks like there's Besselink rejoining the circuit and making contact there with Orange. That was a bit of a dangerous rejoin from Besselink, but I think Orange was a bit optimistic going for that move down the inside as well once Besselink was back on the circuit. But Vining is possibly going to get past here through the bus stop. No, he's not. That damage on the front of that Mercedes really not helping with getting the car turned in. But that's damage for Orange there in P8. And look, oh, that's some heavy damage there for that Porsche. You can see how slowly he's going around the corners now. And that's Elshaug now to the pits for his drive-through penalty that he's got to serve within 3 laps, of course. And let's have a read of some of the comments that we've got. Orange once again making a few mistakes, but good to see that he's still continuing. Lord Press saying, oh no, that rejoin was cringe. Oh god. Yeah, it was a bit of a butt-clenching rejoin, if you want to say. Oh, I saw that coming off. I saw that coming from a mile off, you know. Once you see the drivers inching back towards the track, and you see the other drivers on the track going at 10 times the speed, you're like, oh no, this can't end. This isn't going to end well. And as we saw, it didn't. But it looks like Van Hoorn may be able to get a move done here on Orange. I think for the Project Reborn Porsche driver here, probably think about pitting early, and in fact, is he going to pit before the pit window? No, he should keep it out for longer. He's got a few, he can easily continue for a few more laps. He's going to have to make 2 pit stops here this race, and I think that is a massive mistake. But let's see, is his steering bent? It looks to be slightly. Yeah, I think that's what the problem was. So obviously some suspension damage there as well for Orange. We go back to Curtin, P5 on the back of Raggy now. Looks like Vining has got past Besselink as well. Let's go on board with the Aston Martin driver here, Curtin. And Tobin not far off of Thomas either, about a 3-second gap, but they are lapping very similar times due to both being on the slick tyres. But you can see the weather now looking to starting to clear up a bit in about 10 minutes, but for the drivers who started on slicks, it's not going to benefit them. We've got a mandatory pit window, and for the drivers who are on wets now, all they have to do is change tyres within the pit stop window, and they haven't really lost any time. But yeah, it is looking to dry up shortly here. You can see how much Curtin's having to turn that wheel. He's possibly on the dry tyres as well. Let's have a look. I can't see a thing, so that doesn't help. But judging on lap times, 1:59 from Curtin. I think he may be on the dry tyres here. You can see the amount of understeer he's got going through some of these corners. Timo saying way too sharp in that rejoin. Shame because he was doing really well. Yeah, he was. Oskar saying he believes there was a bit of contact into turn 1 that started the sequence of events. Yeah, I wondered why they were so far wide on the exit of turn 1. I think there's definitely elbows out going into the first corner, but it's such a difficult corner there to go side by side through. And it's not really a corner you can go too wide through. You have to use all that exit you've got, that runoff you've got to avoid making contact, and especially if the drivers are on the wrong tyre sets, if they're on slicks, trying to go side by side through turn 1, it's going to end up in disaster. They're not going to get the rotation they want on the front end of the car, and yeah, they're going to wash out wide like we saw before. But a bit of a conservative line there through bus stop for Raggy, not taking much of the curbs going through the bus stop, and their Curtin having to downshift quite early because Raggy was quite slow in the mid corner. Then we've got yellow flags out on track. Who are the yellow flags? Or is that Orange exiting the pits? No, Barth has lost it somewhere. Barth, I think, has he changed tyres? He's definitely lost the car somewhere. He's got some splitter damage. Barth went for the gamble with the slicks. He did change onto the wets, but seems to be struggling with the car at the moment, even on the wet tyres. And that damage is just not going to aid in his favour. But we can see the other battle there down in P5, P6. I believe that is Vining about 1.5 seconds off of Curtin, and in fact Curtin is losing a bit of time now to Raggy after a slight mistake. You can see a slight dry line forming now as well as the rain starts to settle, and the drivers consistently driving on the racing line will push the water to the edges of the track, so that's what usually creates a dry line once the rain stops falling. Yeah, we could see the drivers switching to the dry tyres in their pits. Now for those who are out on track at the moment, I think they'll be waiting till the end of the pit window, or towards the end of the pit window, to decide if they should pit for dry tyres or not, because we know that weather can change. It's changed during the formation lap and it can change again, so that's something that the drivers have to be aware of. Now it is every driver for themselves. They don't have any race engineers to help them out. There we go, it's already gone to damp now as the trap, so from wet to damp, but they don't have any engineers to help them out. It's all down to them. They've got to decide the strategy, when to pit. They've got to drive on the track as well while battling other cars at high speed, and it's definitely not easy. But look at the lead that Pisano has got, 47 seconds, and we're only 19 minutes into the race. That just goes to show that Pisano is pretty much one of the only drivers that took the right tyre choice. So he took a gamble, it worked really well there for him. And all he needs to do is have a chilled, relaxed Sunday drive now. That's a huge gap, and I don't think anyone will be able to catch him unless he makes a massive error. But at this point, Pisano is not going to be pushing the car. All he has to do is bring it home now, and well, I think navigate past some traffic as well, which shouldn't be too difficult as long as he gives them some room, and if he's patient, the less time he'll lose. As the field is spaced out slightly, let's go for an onboard with Pisano. He's about to start another lap. You can see the dry line once again. You can see the tyre marks now on the circuit. There's definitely a dry line forming, but look at that, the weather's changed once again. We're going to get light rain again in about 10 minutes. I do love the weather on ACC though. It's quite good because it's similar to real life, where you'd have passing by clouds, you have sun rain on the circuit, although it can be a bit extreme at times, but we haven't set it too extreme. It can be much worse than this, but yeah, we've got some passing by clouds here at Watkins Glen. Only light drizzle on the track at the moment, so nothing too much that the drivers have to worry about. But if the rain gets heavier after that 10-minute mark, that's where they could be in for some trouble. So for now, the best bet for the drivers is to stay on the wet tyres. There's still a decent amount of water on the circuit. Even if their tyres start to overheat, they can drive offline and cool them down if need be. But they definitely don't want to take the risk of going with the dries too early, and then the rain ends up getting heavier, and they have to pit once more to change tyres. But this is really a leveler, these conditions. It does make sure that the drivers who know what they're doing in terms of weather and all, Van Hoorn there with some serious understeer. Looks like he took too much speed through the final corner. Hit the barrier on the exit, barrier, and well, that's a bit more damage for the Aston Martin of Van Hoorn. But Van Hoorn sticking with Besselink now, even after that mistake. He's not lost too much time, but Tobin really catching up to Thomas now. And Thomas, well, leading the championship as we said previously on the formation lap. As long as he can stay on the podium, I think he'll be able to win the championship as long as he gets a good result going into the final round. So consistent podiums for Thomas, and he should be okay to win the championship. However, if he does have a bad result this round or even next round, the championship is very close as it is. But with Demori retiring from the race, I think it relieves a bit of pressure off of Thomas's shoulders. But Pisano, I think, is his next competitor that he does have to worry about. But Van Hoorn, you can see they're really struggling with the car at the moment, indecisive between gears here. And you sort of have to be if you're on the wrong tyre sets or the wrong tyres. Wrong tyre compound is what I wanted to say. Van Hoorn currently on... Actually, I think he's on... Yeah, on slicks. I think that is slicks. Will we see him pit now? No, he won't. And you can see we've got some heavy rain in 10 minutes. So for the driver, it is worth staying on the wet tyres, even if they start to burn up at the moment. But of course, they have the optional tyre change in the pit stop, so that shouldn't really be an issue for those out on track. And we go back to Tobin P3, only 2.2 seconds back to Thomas. He's currently lapping 152s. Thomas also lapping 152s. In fact, that last time around, Thomas was 3/10 quicker, but they might start thinking about putting the trigger to going. Actually, no, the drivers on slicks won't. Drivers and slicks won't start to think about putting the trigger. They've got the advantage of the track going from wet to damp now, and their tyres will slowly start to come back to life. But once the rain starts to fall again, that's where Pisano and any other drivers that are on wets, that's when they'll have the advantage once again. But it is really hit and miss with these conditions. That's why it would be useful to have some sort of weather data for the drivers, like a race engineer, like you do in lots of other forms of motorsport. It looks like Barth down in P11 on the back of Giuseppe there. Giuseppe with some damage on the old Ferrari, the 488. And Barth also with some splitter damage on his Porsche. Now what can he do? Let's go on board here with... Nope. Let's go on board here with Barth. There we go. There, the Porsche screaming here down the straight. He's looking for a move down the inside. No space there for Barth. Getting on the power fairly late. But once again, up towards this left-hander. No room. Giuseppe going slightly wide there, getting the rear end out. I believe this is where we saw him lose the car. previously. Barth looking for a move. No possible place. He's going to go for a move there into that fast left-hander. You can see how much he's being held up by. Is that a pit for Barth? No, he's keeping it out on track. He thought about pitting, but there we go. The rain's starting to come in once again. And Barth looking for a move down the inside into turn 1. And it looks like Giuseppe's surely going to have to back out of this. No, he holds it around the outside. Barth actually backed out of that move. He wasn't confident of going down the inside into turn 1 there. But sensible decision there from Barth. If you don't think you're going to be able to make it stick, don't go for it, as it can always hurt you more if you end up overshooting the corner or making a massive error. But here we go. He's looking towards the inside, coming up towards the bus stop. And is he going to commit to this one? I don't think he will. He was not alongside enough and backs out of the move. Now, we've got Vining and Curtin once again battling for position. Curtin is going to have to think about defending very shortly, because Vining is within a second, even with that heavy damage on that Mercedes, which I believe he still has. Yes, he does. Even with that damage, he's been able to close the gap now to Curtin. It could just be the difference of tyre pressures as well. But Barth looking for a dummy down the inside. I think it may have slightly worked there on Giuseppe. No, it hasn't. Giuseppe still holding on. It looked like he carried a bit too much speed into the corner, but he didn't. It's slightly uphill going through there. Well, slightly. It is actually a steep gradient going through there with that right-hander. Barth has been struggling to get past the Ferrari of Di Giuseppe. Jack saying, I remember when he got his podium in the wet, he was well chuffed with that. I believe that was at Silverstone, wasn't it? Jack, you still there? I think it was at Silverstone. On console in Division 2. But Lord Pearl saying, that's a ridiculous lead. Easy Carl, he hit Jan's family, the wall. Yeah, it was at Silverstone, yeah. I do remember that one. But look how close these two are, Barth and Giuseppe. Barth is still in the slipstream. He's got to have a good run now on Giuseppe. Look how close he is. And he pulls out the slipstream quite early, actually. But he's going to try and get a bit of a side draft. Elshaug, pardon me, now into the pits. And Barth is going to get this done even before the braking zone. There we go. Giuseppe, with that heavy damage, isn't able to carry the speed down the straights. And look how much understeer he's got going through the bus stop. But there we go, Barth up a position. Now we go back up towards Curtin and Vining here. And that sort of discreet view we've got on the back of Curtin's Aston Martin. He's just been sticking with Curtin here, not letting him get out of sight as they go up through these S's and down towards the straight before the bus stop. But no one else deciding to pit just yet. And once again, the weather is constantly changing here, or the prediction of the weather is constantly changing, because it is just a forecast. It can change very quickly depending on the wind, which we don't seem to have much of at the moment. But the wind, the cloud coverage, which can obviously change. And I'm not a weatherman, so I don't know exactly how all of that works, but you almost need to be when you're driving on your own in these conditions. And we saw there Vining a bit too wide on the exit curb. Luckily, kept it pointing in the right direction. But that's Elshaug, the first one to pit, and Pisano now losing a bit of time to Thomas and Tobin. But I think now that the rain is starting to fall once again, Pisano can keep it out for even longer. But does he really need to? I'm sure he could. I'm sure he could even have a cup of coffee in the pits, to be honest. Or we could even go for a toilet break in the pits with that massive lead. And there we go, Orange now into the pits, but that's his second pit stop he's had to make. You can see that, oh, Vining getting the rear end out through the final corner. Yeah, I think it will be wet tyres till the end here. And I'm still surprised that Thomas and Tobin haven't pitted yet. Still damp, so they should be okay. But surely, once their tyres start to drop in pressure, once those lap times get even slower, they will pull the trigger. And Pisano, now the race leader, into the pits. But he's got absolutely nothing to worry about. The only thing he may have to worry about is a stop-go 30 for speeding the pits. But even with that huge lead he's got, I still think he might be out in front, even if he did have a massive penalty like that. Into the box, into his pit box he goes. Jack Croft saying, are these guys still on wets? Doesn't look very wet. Some of them started on wet tyres. I would be staying on the wet tyres if I were them. Oh, Vining very late on the brakes there. I would be staying on the wet tyres if I were them. You can see the track is still... You've still got some slight standing water on the track, and there is spray coming from the cars as well. So it definitely is wet tyres here. But the risk is with the rain getting heavier. I think from what some of the drivers would have learned from the start, if they started in the slicks, that they're not going to work in these conditions. They're going to be too cold, and they're going to have a lack of grip here. As you can see, Vining really struggling to get the car turned in mid-corner. And is that Van Hoorn into the pits now? Yes, it is. Gets the car stopped just in time. That unleashes Vining into, well, P4 now. Tobin's into the pits as well. It's a lovely livery there on that car, which you can finally see. But Thomas, you can see that Thomas still has to serve his pit stop, and Pisano is only 5 seconds behind with serving his pit stop. So huge lead. That huge lead that Pisano had is going to help him out massively. But let's take a quick look once again at the standings. So Thomas on 508 points, Pisano on 487. As long as Thomas can finish P2, I don't think there's going to be much of a points difference. Really, they'll be back to where they were before the last round, before round 6. So it shouldn't really be much of a problem for Thomas. You can see the rate at which Pisano is catching Thomas. Oh, that was a hairy moment there for Pisano. That could have ended up very badly for him. But still, Thomas keeping out on track. He's still, I believe he's still on the slick tyres, because there's no way he'll be lapping that slowly on wet. And yeah, he's staying well clear of the curbs, just taking a little bit, just enough to maximise or open up the corner even. But Giuseppe now served his mandatory pit stop. He's quite a way back to Van Hoorn, who has served his. Curtin has served his as well. Tobin has too. And now Raggy into the pits. Where is Besselink? Because those two were sort of battling earlier on. But after that rejoin from Besselink, or that collision he had with Orange, they did drop down a bit further. But these three, Raggy, Vining and Besselink, all into the pits now. Elshaug back into the pits. Is that a drive-through penalty, or is it damage? It may be another drive-through penalty there for Elshaug, but Pryor keeping it out on track. And Giuseppe hasn't repaired his damage. Still running with that damage. That's a brave, a bold move there from him. And here the car struggling to turn even through these S's. Well, let's see, is this steering straight? We can just about see it here. Does he need to keep it straight, or does he need to keep it... Now I think it's slightly turned. I don't think his steering wheel is straight. That's probably what's losing him a lot of time, and it may have been a wise idea to repair the damage in the pits, but he's 19 seconds in front of Orange. And maybe not pitting might have saved him a position or two. Pisano now is going to get past the provisional race leader, Thomas, who's now going into the pits. But no issues there for Pisano. Got back down to Vining, who's lost... he hasn't actually repaired his damage, so he's lost some time in the pits as well, because he's now 1.8 seconds behind Raggy, and he was battling with Curtin. Curtin now over 7 seconds ahead, and I believe that's a retirement from who has just retired from the race. I don't know who retired. Who was it? Can anyone let me know? I'm not actually sure who left. Let's try and work this out. Who has retired the car? Oh, it's Elshaug who retired. Ah, that's who it was. Unfortunate retirement there from Elshaug. Jackcroft saying... Oh wait, what did he say? Let's have a look in just a moment. But Vining on the back of Raggy now. These two quite close. That gap has been closed down by Vining. He seems to be comfortable running with that damage throughout the race, but he's got the right tyres on now. Just for the rain to stop in about 3 minutes. So I think they should be okay till the end. I mean, I assume most of the drivers will not pit for tyre changes here anymore. But let's have a look at the comments once again. Jacob saying Silverstone podium was soaked, couldn't follow anyone without getting his windshield filled with water. Yeah, it's so difficult to see when you're following someone in those conditions. But that's Vining now ahead of Raggan. He's pulling away now, 1.5 seconds. And the next car ahead for Vining is Curtin, who he was battling with earlier before the pit stops, but he's now 11 seconds in front. Oh, a long way to go there, and it looks like, oh, Pryor's lost the car. Oh my god, that was so close. Well held there from Pryor. Very well held. And Van Hoorn sails past. Going down the straight. Now, if you don't get a good exit out of turn 1, it really affects you pretty much twice as much by the time you get to the braking zone before the bus stop chicane. And Jack Croft saying he says it's fair there should be more people. Yeah, but it's usually this time of year towards summer where you get less drivers, people going on holiday and whatnot, and Pryor getting the rear end out. But luckily keeping it within track limits there. That could have been in the barriers there for Pryor, and that may have been also a race-ending incident for him. There isn't much runoff here on some of the corners here at Watkins Glen. Back to Raggy. Jack saying he has some damage, I believe. Who said he has some damage? Yeah, Jack Croft saying he's got slight damage, but I believe he's had that for a while now, since turn 1, lap 1. But it doesn't look to be too bad. That front splitter damage that he's got at the moment. Back to Pryor, still a second off of Van Hoorn, even after the countless mistakes he's been making, and once again hitting the wall. We saw Van Hoorn do that actually before the pit stops. And now Pryor's gonna done it as well. You can tell he's trying to push the car to stick with or even catch up to Van Hoorn. maybe pushing a bit too much. Barth, you can hear that Porsche in the distance. He's about 10 seconds behind. Started on the dry tyres, took a gamble with the wets. After the pit stops, but I don't think it's worked out for Barth. Every stint he's been on the wrong tyre. You can see the rain has stopped. How long will the wet tyres last? Barth now driving offline to cool the tyres down, taking a bit of grass as well. I think the grass in that area was a bit too long. It's just helping out the circuit. We go back to Pryor. P9 is closed up to Van Hoorn once again. And it looks like Pryor is on dry tyres, I think. So this actually could go in Pryor's favour massively. Is Van Hoorn on wets or is he on dries? Oh, I can't actually tell now. I have no clue whatsoever. Pisano P1 lapping in the 153s. Thomas 153s. Tobin 153s as well. And Curtin actually 153 flat. And then in the 152s was Curtin that last lap round. Is there enough time in the race for him to close 16 seconds up on Tobin? He needs to lap over a second quicker if he wants to catch them. But Thomas still in P2 after the pits, so as long as he stays there, the championship fight shouldn't be affected too much. But P12 looks like Orange is on the back of Giuseppe now. Giuseppe thinking about defending, but I think he knows there's not much he can do with all that damage he's carrying on that Ferrari. And Orange down the inside, later on the brakes, and he's going to get the inside line and have that move done. Up into P11 he goes. And he still pick up good points for finishing at P11, even after that contact he had with Besselink earlier on. Now Besselink P7 in a bit of, not no man's land, but he's been lapped now by the race leader Pisano. But what could have been for Besselink, he was running so well until that incident. I believe it would have been his highest running position. It was his highest running position so far of the season. Usually we've seen him P10 onwards. H saying he bonked the wall in the previous lap. Jack Croft saying, what do you think the best car is for this track? Porsche's very strong here at Watkins Glen. I mean, the Ferrari's been pretty dominant at a lot of tracks. But yeah, I think the Porsche is rapid around Watkins Glen, and the Mercedes isn't too bad here either. Mercedes is quite a good car. But of course, at the moment, it's a bit all up in the air. BOP doesn't matter as much when you've got these changeable conditions. What matters is if you're on the correct tyre or not. But yeah, I think Kunos BOP isn't the best. It does need to be changed for sure. Jack saying, you say the Porsche's best car that it runs off track. It's down to the driver as well. It depends who's behind the wheel. You can get 10 drivers who are in the Porsche. They don't know how to drive it around the track. They're going to get beaten by other cars. But I think it does come down to the driver. But I think when you're at the top level, where some of the drivers, well, in the top 5, where they'll be competing, that's where BOP matters the most. And if you look at our other championships, some of these drivers are usually competing at the top. On some tracks, you'll see them further down the order just because of the drastic changes in BOP. For our next season, we'll definitely change some things. Maybe add some ballast on as well to even things out. If Kunos doesn't sort anything out with their BOP by then. But I'm sure a lot of drivers would rather prefer Unos BOP than real life BOP because they really do limit the cars in real series. What else have we got going on? As we said earlier, Van Hoorn was ahead of Pryor, still is in fact, but Pryor has not let him get away. That gap is still 1.2 seconds and they both, actually Van Hoorn was a tenth slower that last time around. 153.3 for Van Hoorn, 153.2 for Pryor, so he's inching closer by about a tenth every lap here. The track is drying up very quickly lap after lap here, and I think the drivers are going to have to start to think about driving offline down the straights, especially just to cool their tires down, because the track temp is quite warm, ambient temp fairly warm as well, so that track could easily go to greasy at any point in this race, but usually it takes a bit longer for it to dry up than for it to get wet. And oh, Van Hoorn getting the rear out there, and once again on the exit, looks like he's trying to carry a bit too much speed, maybe a bit too much braking into the corner. That's not going to help his rear tyres whatsoever, especially if he's on those wet tyres. They're going to start to heat up, to burn up, and that rear is going to get even more unstable corner after corner. But judging by their lap times, I think, and judging by going on board with them, I think they are on slick tyres. They might be okay. In fact, I believe Thomas is on the slicks as well. Yeah. So a lot of drivers choosing the slicks now. So they have really gone for the correct tyre choice in this second stint. Pizzardo, Thomas, Tobin, Curtin and Vining all lapping fairly similar times. Besselink as well that last time around, a 151.3, which is similar pace to Thomas in P2 at the moment. But like I said earlier, these conditions are really a level. And actually, speaking of Besselink, he's on the back of Raggy now. Raggy's made a mistake. Besselink has found some more time lapping. Actually, yeah, 4 seconds a lap. 4 seconds quicker last lap was Besselink than Raggy. Is Raggy on the wet tyres? I'm not sure, but let's have a look at how close Besselink is behind. Just a few tenths here. You see they're using a better line. Is Besselink. Raggy a bit too late on the brakes, missing the apex, but still holding on. And is that Besselink down the inside? Looks like it is. He's going to get that one done. And they're still side by side, however, but Raggy's got to back out of that move as he does. And Besselink now up into P6. He's trying to redeem himself here after what happened earlier. And oh, what's happened here to Raggy? What on earth happened there? Looks like he broke a bit too early. Or maybe even a bit too late. Could have been a lockup from Raggy there. Look at the two Aston Martin drivers here, P9 and P10. We've also got two more Aston Martins, P3 and P4, but Pryor is giving Van Hoorn a run for his money here this race. And if Pryor is still racing with a one arm, then once again, massive respect to him. I have no idea how he's doing it. Van Hoorn wide there on the exit of turn 1. Pryor giving him some room to rejoin, but surely he's going to have that with the overspeed now. And Van Hoorn is going to slot back in behind Pryor up into P8 after that overtake, capitalizing on the mistake from Van Hoorn. And a great job there from Pryor, now up into P9. Let's have a look. Besselink is nearly 4 seconds ahead of Raggy after that mistake. Here we go. You can see on board from Van Hoorn on the right hand side. On the track side of this battle on the left hand side as well. You see there Van Hoorn really fighting the wheel to keep the car planted on the road. And Giuseppe into the pits. Has he picked up some more damage? I think he may have. Let's have a quick look. Surely it's got to be that damage. I'm not sure if it's a drive-through penalty. But let's have a look. If he doesn't stop in the box soon. No, I think it is a... it's up for repairs, maybe? Yeah, looks like he's hitting for repairs. So let's go back to this battle between Pryor and Van Hoorn. Van Hoorn seems to be losing some time to Pryor now. I wonder if it's just down to tyres mainly. Van Hoorn is losing time lap after lap here to Pryor. Last time around he was over a second slower. You can just see he's wrestling with that car at the moment. Just to keep it pointing in the right direction. You definitely don't want to be fighting against the car in the dry and these conditions as well. What is BOP? Oh yeah, that's been answered. Yep, balance of performance. Jetcraft saying this is the first track you competed on SimZone in that endurance race. Yes. I don't think that went very well for you. But you can see the sun's coming out now. It's gone to greasy. And there is a proper dry line on the track here. But I don't think it should be much worry for many of the drivers apart from Barth, who is on wet tyres. Look at that. Wet tyres here for Barth. They must be absolutely shredded at the moment. He's going to have to be driving offline on these straights to cool them down, surely. Yep, there we go. Onto the wetter surface of the track. Well, I don't think it's going to do too much for Barth here, but he's only got 6.5 minutes left to go. The only risk that Barth runs is a puncture in these conditions, so I think he's got to stay off the aggressive curbs to make sure that there's less risk of a puncture here. And he's still got his wipers on. There's no rain here, Jan. Bone dry now. Well, there's no rain falling from the sky. The track's still not fully bone dry, but we've got a proper dry line formed. And, well, looking at this, and we're not far, well, we're not close to the track. Looking at it from this angle, every aspect of the track, every inch of the track looks to be completely dry. And when we go back on board, you can see some wet patches on the track, off to racing line and towards the edges as well. Barth has got to be very careful here. If he punctures a tyre, that could be his race over. And now looking at Vining, he's caught up to Curtin once again. On the back of Curtin now. Curtin's going to have to go defensive. Look at the run that Vining's got. Surely he's going to be able to do this round the outside into turn one. But Curtin's still there. He's not going to back out of this move, and he's going to hold on. But he's gone deep into the corner. He's gone wide, and Vining is going to get a switchback here. That is really wide there from Curtin, just carrying a bit too much speed. And there we go. The classic old switcheroo from Vining puts him up into P4 now. And it's been a good recovery drive from Vining. Started P3 in the race. And he's up to, well, I'm dropping right down the grid. He's back up to P4, and in fact, Tobin started P6. He's had a good race so far, up into P3, and it could be a possible podium here for Tobin. Curtin and Besselink have both had good positive results so far, but the race is not over yet. And Van Hoorn losing time, lap after lap here once again to Pryor. 3 seconds now is the gap between Pryor and Van Hoorn. And looking at their lap times, yeah, Van Hoorn was over half a second slower to Pryor. Just that last lap. Looks like Thomas now with the fastest lap of the race, a 1:47.222, which he did just last lap. And it goes to show, if he chose the right tyres at the start of the race, I think he would have been up for, well, he would have been able to challenge Pisano for the race win. And I think possibly Tobin would have been as well, and that's yellow flags out for Van Hoorn. He's facing the wrong way. Oh, a bit of a power slide there as well, but he seems to be struggling now. Maybe wrong tyre pressures on his car, on his tyres, and there may possibly be overinflated here. And overinflated or underinflated tyres can change the aero balance of the car. We know in GT cars, or with aerodynamics, a few millimeters of change on a splitter or ride height or anything can drastically affect the car's performance. So having overinflated tyres can raise the car, and essentially you'll have less downforce going through some of the corners. That could be what Van Hoorn is currently experiencing. And of course, once your tyres are overheating as well, it's another story. Back to Pisano, just lapping some cars now, getting through some traffic. I believe that was, sorry, not Bestlink, not Raggy, that was Curtin, who he just got past, and he's actually taken back the fastest lap of the race now, 1:46.225 from Pisano. And Thomas, I believe, was a 1:46.6. Yeah, so Pisano taking the fastest lap of the race once again. Simo saying next season custom VOP. Jaguar minus 100 kg plus 200 horsepower. I think it might need that. The traction control on that car is so limiting. I think maybe the traction control might be a bit more of use. Simo saying just wrote random numbers. Jackcraft saying, how do we have such easy access to the lap times? ACC TV is how we have easy access to the lap times. You've got pretty much all data, or most data we can access from ACC on here, and that's the benefit of PC compared to console, really. We can have external apps where we can see things like laps, individual lap times, sector times. Well, sector times we can see on console as well, but we can see pit stop times as well, which I can show you now. In fact, just in case we want to see how long each driver spent in the pits. So there we can see. In fact, Pisano actually had quite a horrible pit stop, but I believe he did change tyres, and most of the others didn't. So 73-second pit stop for Pisano. That's how much time he spent in the pit lane from entering the white line to exiting the pit exit white line. Yeah, we've got data like that. We've got things like nations, so you can see where drivers are from. And actually, that is the last lap of the race. So Pisano finishing the race in P1. Wow, that went quite quickly. I wasn't paying attention to the time. But Pisano in P1, and some of the drivers haven't actually set their nationality, so it won't show up with a flag. And there we go, rain towards the end of the race. But luckily for the drivers that are on slick tyres, That won't matter. For Jan Barth, then P10. Oh, he might be a bit lucky. But yeah, I'm sure those wets are going to be burnt up by the time he crosses the finish line. There we go, Thomas approaching the final corner now. And it's going to be P2 here for Thomas as he rounds the final corner. P2 at Watkins Glen. I'm not sure if he's going to be too happy with that result, but if I were him, I wouldn't be too worried. It's still leading the championship going into the final round, and that's what matters the most, is to get that right. And Tobin is going to round the final corner. I think that's probably one of my favourite Aston Martin liveries. But there we go, Tobin is going to cross the line in P3. You can tell he's happy with that result. And there we go, podium for Tobin. I believe his first podium of the season. Finally, he's going to come up towards the final corner in P4. And there we have it, the top three: Pisano, Thomas, and Tobin. We'll be back in just a moment. So I don't think we'll be able to get interviews done, but there we have it, top three: Pisano, Thomas, and Tobin. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be back live tomorrow for the IMB Raceway Championship.